This is the Digital Trust Podcast. In every episode, we strive to bring support to those of you who serve on the front lines and in the trenches of data and technology. We endeavor to bring understanding to the under-resourced and underappreciated, help remove your stress, and provide relief to your pain. Welcome to the Digital Trust Podcast. Sit down with us as we give you hard-hitting advisory conversations to help you build digital trust with your stakeholders and clients, and actionable takeaways to help you become a digitally trustworthy organization.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Trust Podcast. My name is Christian Redshaw, and with me is my co-host today, Zach Eikenberry. Zach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm excited. We've got a great conversation lined up here.
100%. So we have with us from Ireland, all the way from Ireland, Gavin Roberts. He's the CTO of TopSec Cloud Solutions. Gavin has over 25 years of experience in financial payments, credit card fraud experience, web development, financial IT, and email security. So Gavin, welcome to the podcast today.
Hi, Christian. Hi, Zach. Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me on the podcast. Good to be here.
It is a pleasure. So let's start with your career journey, Gavin. Tell us how it started and what brought you to the absolute pinnacle of your career today, which is to be on our podcast.
Absolutely. It began for me, it actually began for me as originally wanting a career in architecture, and through that discovering PCs, CAD, and just falling in absolute love with it. That is why early on in my career, as you mentioned, I would have began in the IT sector. That would have been with DEC. That actually became Compaq, which became HP. So I got to work for all three of them. And then from there, field engineering. And then naturally, I think, because I did have an interest in it very early on, into the financial sector and into the kind of starting to put my foot into the world of security. From there, I knew that I wanted to be involved in development and code and security from that point of view. So I made the move from the bank into specifically credit card fraud, basically running Unix gateways that were processing online payments and having a system there that monitored for suspicious activity, flagged various things, and then having a replica system that would put bad actors on from the actual live system onto the replica, allow them to continue on as though they believed they were still doing what they were doing. All the time we're tracing them, tracking them, doing what we can to try and basically give as much information to the high-tech crime unit as possible. It is a fascinating, interesting world that has, I suppose, way more to it than most people realizing.
Well, I mean, that's the question that's top of mind for me, because I looked at your resume prior to this and I said, this guy has touched everything, and you've been in really high-tech environments, and email tech protocol hasn't changed in 30 years. And so I was curious, like, what do you see in email security that drew you there? What is the technical challenge that you see and you're fascinated by?
That it is the main attack vector out there. You know, about 90% of attacks that we see are going to 90% of all the attacks we see are going to be basically committed through email. So it is the area that needs the most attention. And like you say, you know, the original design of email wasn't a great design. It just hasn't really changed for a long time. So there are lots of opportunities and places on both sides of the fence. There are things bad actors can do with email. And then from a security angle, there's lots of things that we can do and lots of things that potentially we can do in the future as well.
Gavin, what are you seeing as your top email security concerns right now?
That's a good question. There are a few different things. I suppose over the last 2 years, we've seen increasing demands and pressure from all industries to introduce AI into email security. So I was always of the opinion 2 years ago that this was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. I think we should have at least some kind of track record of what this technology can do for email security, and also give it the time it needs to actually see what the bad actors are going to do with it. At the very early stages, often I'm asked the question, where is AI? What's AI doing? Where is it in the system? How are you using it? And initially, that could be quite a frustrating question, because it's almost like people wanted it to just be there, regardless of what it did. For that reason, we do try to keep all of our traditional techniques in place and use AI to complement it. That way, we're kind of covering our backs. And I was quite surprised, because over the last 2 years, the language that we see being used in the likes of spam emails and phishing emails has gotten dramatically better because of AI. But at the same time, detections are still detecting at the same rate and percentage that they were 2 years ago. So the systems that would have been in place are coping with them just fine. But I do think that within our industry, a security industry, one of the risks that we have is with people, because that kind of technology coming along means that the skill sets people have maybe aren't being kept up to date quite as much as they were. If their hands-on is reduced because of technology, then it means that if that technology isn't available tomorrow, their skills aren't quite up to speed to where they were a year ago or 2 years ago. So I think that's a bit of a risk, and especially with a lot of talk now about the AI bubble potentially bursting. Down the line, if that happens, I think that people are a risk, and I think as well, those traditional systems that should be kept in play, if they're not kept in play, that means they're not kept up to date, and they can't just be returned to. So I see those things as potentially quite big risks that a lot of people are missing right now.
Now, if you're a CTO, so you see this technology and you're a builder, right?
Yes.
What advice would you give to folks who want to also build into probably the busiest street of cybersecurity, which is email, right? They want to build and be part of that. What advice would you give them now that AI is both in demand and in the hype cycle, as I think you alluded to, but you're also saying like the traditional ways in which the bad guys attack and the way that you remediate and defend, those basic principles haven't changed. How does somebody navigate that if they want to join the TopSec team and work for you?
Yeah, I find that very interesting, because if I was brand new to tech and had an interest in tech and thought, okay, there's an avenue I want to go down, and potentially, like you say, I want to go down the security avenue. There's more than one way that I can do that now. I can either hone my skills to be able to use tools that are AI driven and then allow me to build things, but potentially with very, very little code. Or I can go down the avenue of actually learning that code, learning how it all works, and then using those tools to complement me. That is the method that I would suggest is the best approach, because doing that gives you so much more knowledge, so much more understanding and scope to do more in the future. But it's definitely changed an awful lot. And we would use tools to assist us, but we don't rely on that technology. We make sure we've got the knowledge in the room.
Gavin, shifting gears for a minute and just deep into email security, what would you say to someone who is just relying for their organization on the security features of their email? In other words, Office 365, for example. What's the gap there that they're missing by taking that approach?
Well, probably top of my list of things that I would be concerned about with regards to email infrastructure if I was a CEO would be the layers of the security. And I think this is something that's gradually changing over time. Historically, from just general security point of view, you naturally have layers, and you have SOC teams that have multiple things in multiple systems. But from a security point of view, there are a lot of people who would have always just trusted the tools within Microsoft, or maybe there's companies out there, I speak to them all the time, who have a security gateway like ourselves, and they have Microsoft, but they're questioning, they're wondering, why do we need the two? One of the issues with a security gateway that functions really well is that when it functions really well, nobody's aware of it. So every so often you'll get the question, what is that doing? You know, because it's doing its job, it's causing no fuss. The main benefit of having layers in email security, it just means that you're pulling in a lot more threat intelligence data from a lot of different points. And you're not necessarily dealing with someone like Microsoft purely who are they're not geared in, specifically in specialty towards email security. They do a whole bunch of things. So someone like ourselves, our threat intelligence probably going to be ahead of theirs most of the time. And we're going to have a lot more places that we pull data in from that our system will react to. So I guess it's proven and tested. We put systems in place beside Microsoft, and we can see ultimately what is being caught post Microsoft scans. And we know that there are risks there, and we know that it's helping, and we know that it's doing its job. So from real world experience, I know having layers of security in place, having multiple avenues of data coming in to react to is ultimately, it's the way to go, it's the way forward, and it's very much needed.
See, it seems like email security is the sound man of the industry. You want to stay quiet in the background. If everything sounds good and is working, then you're doing a job.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So, well, on that note, we're going to wind down this episode today. Gavin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And Zach and I will be right back to wrap things up.
Thank you.
So, Zach, great conversation with Gavin. Surprisingly calm for an Irishman, can you say?
Yes, absolutely.
What was your big takeaway from that conversation?
I think it's interesting that his advice to new IT people joining his team is to still develop a deep expertise in coding languages and code architecture, because there still needs to be some redundancy in place.
Yes.
When it comes to the security of security tools.
Yes.
And those security tools cannot fail.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a unique insight where I think a lot of information coming out of Silicon Valley today is trust the tools, ship the code. Security will happen later when the tools develop stronger. And so his advice is a little, dare I say, asymmetric to the going zeitgeist if you read only blogs and Twitter X posts.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think along similar lines, going from tools to people, he's talking about people being a big risk as well. And I think really what he's talking about is security people and making sure that they're developing their skill sets as well. So checking the tools, checking the people, making sure that they're staying current with their skills and with their with the cybersecurity threats of the day. And so that was my takeaway. Brilliant conversation. We're actually going to have him on again for another episode very shortly. So looking forward to that conversation as well. I want to say a special thank you to our viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation, and we'll see you on that next episode.
Thanks for joining us today on the Digital Trust Podcast. If you found this conversation helpful, please share it with someone you care about. And if you'd like to receive our monthly newsletter, please click the link in the description to subscribe. And to put your mind at ease, our newsletter will include episode summaries with key points and actionable takeaways, plus a heads up on the upcoming episode guests. Rest assured, it won't be a spammy sales message, and we will never sell or share your information. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode.